Hi guys, welcome. Dana here from the Magic Junk Drawer, and I have a couple of questions from viewers. So for me, I feel like I can explain things easier through talking rather than writing. So I figured I would just do videos to explain it besides somebody else may have the question. So the first question was, what can cause resistance when you're doing spell work? So I recently did, lately I've done a lot of spell work, and what happens sometimes, and of course I get rid of the evidence. So I don't have anything here, but what happens sometimes is when you're using a jar candle, the way the candle burns can tell us a lot. So in the jar, right there about, I don't know, say about that big, as it burns down, if it burns clear, as if there was never any wax in it, and you get all the way to the bottom and there is no wax, no evidence that there was wax in there, no black smoke, no cracks, no breaks, that would be like a perfect burn. Seldom does that happen. So sometimes what happens is with the candle, you can get little bands of wax that don't burn. And what that is showing us is that there's resistance at play. So what causes resistance? It could be a number of things. Entities and spirits, usually when they're working against us, there'll be black smoke, black rings around the glass, or the glass could break. One time I did a healing spell for somebody who lost a loved one. And I lit the candle and like the flame shot up. I heard a pop, a crack, the glass broke. And I was like, okay, now is not the time. The spirit is not ready, does not want this to happen. So I just, I stopped. Bad sign, not the right time. Tried at another point. Resistance could be like, for me, I took that as a sign from a spirit. Bands of resistance can sometimes be showing us that we have beliefs that are holding us back. So for example, let's say you're doing a candle spell because you want a large sum of money to come in. So we do the candle spell and there's a lot of wax left. There could be a belief in your own mind, I'm never going to get money. I don't have that kind of luck. I never win anything. How many times have you heard someone say that? I never win anything. So those can all be reasons why we're seeing the resistance in the candle. So when resistance comes up, it's not that it's a bad thing, but it's the kind of thing where you want to go back to your own thoughts and beliefs and see where you can change them. Because it's your beliefs that are going out into the universe that are getting reflected back at you. So if you're holding on to some type of resistance, that's what is being shown. Like, it'll never happen to me, or I don't have that kind of luck, or whatever it is. I have to work hard for money. It doesn't matter what the belief is. But usually bands of resistance have something to do with our beliefs that are holding us back. Okay, so the other question I got was, somebody was looking at somebody else's chart and found that these planets all fell in the same signs as theirs. So the planets were Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. What does this mean? So if, say, you're looking at your chart, you're looking at your husband's chart, and all of these planets fall in the same house. I fall in the same sign. What does that mean? Well, because it's those planets, it doesn't really mean anything. So let me explain. I'm gonna pull up just somebody's chart that I've done so that I can explain it. So personal planets would be your sun planet, Mercury, Venus, Mars, your rising sign, and your moon sign. So for example, if you're comparing two charts and you like, all right, I'll use mine for example. My sun is in Pisces and I was looking for a connection to somebody. There could be a connection to somebody who has, they could have their moon in Pisces. The sun-moon connection is strong. A sun-moon opposition is very strong. So somebody that has a Virgo moon and me could have a very strong connection. And then looking at where your planets fall in their houses. So for example, I have Sagittarius in my 7th house. If he has a Sagittarius moon, his moon is in my 7th house. So that would be a strong connection. Sun-moon connections, ascendant, descendant connections, Venus-Mars connections, those are all important. And I'm not saying that the outer planets aren't important. They are, but they're generational planets. So I'll explain to you what I mean. So let's see. I'm just going to pull up anybody's chart. All right. This is my nephew, Nikki. Okay. This guy. All right. So his outer planets are, Jupiter is at 14 degrees of Leo. He was born in 2015. When he was born, that year, 2015, all the babies born that year have Jupiter in Leo. Now, it doesn't start January 1st, so he was born in May. If Jupiter is at 14 degrees of Leo, I don't know when it entered that year off the top of my head, but for the majority of the people that were born in 2015, they'll all have Jupiter in Leo. Jupiter will be in one sign for about a year and a half. Sometimes a little bit longer, because it's got to retrograde and then move out. Now, he had Saturn in Sagittarius, which is also going to be there for about a year or so. So everybody born in 2015 will have that. Now, Uranus, he had in Aries. Uranus, it takes about 7 years. So, and he was at 18 degrees of Aries, which means it's just a little bit past the halfway mark. So he's right in the middle of where Aries was. Uranus was in Aries when he was born. So 2015. So it probably moved in somewhere around 2010. So anybody born between like 2010, and this is a rough estimate out of my head, until I think 2018, I think it moved into Taurus. So for those 8 years, everybody born in those 8 years will all have Uranus in Aries. Neptune in Pisces. In 2015, it was at 9 degrees of Pisces. So Neptune probably moved into Pisces maybe 2011, 2012, and it's going to be there for quite some time. And Pluto, it can take up to 30 years to move. So anybody born within those 30 years will be what they call a Pluto in Capricorn generation. So Nikki is of the Pluto in Capricorn generation because he was born in 2015. And the same thing like the Neptune in Pisces generation. Now, he has... All right, so Saturn here was at 2 degrees of Sagittarius when he was born. So, and it was retrograde. So it may have retrograded back into Scorpio in June or July of that year. So some of the people that were born that year may be a Uranus and Scorpio person. But overall, these outer planets will be the same for almost everybody born in the same year. So they don't really mean anything. What means more is what house you have them in. So let's just, look at, this guy. This guy's Sagittarius rising. So for example, what means more is what house it falls in. So he's got Sagittarius rising in the first house, which would make him freedom-loving, independent. Sometimes he'd be guilty of not thinking before he speaks, doing what he wants, having a love of adventure. So that means more. Now, that depends on what time he was born. Now, if he was born an hour or two later, he would have been a Capricorn rising, which would have made him a totally different personality. It would have made him more down to earth. It would make him, sometimes they could be a little bit somber, Capricorn, responsible, whereas Sagittarius is more like, hey, where's the party? So that's more important when you look at someone's chart and what planets are in which houses, rather than what planets are in what sign when we're dealing with generational planets. So for him, he's got Taurus sun. If we were looking at a composite chart, or we were looking, at how he got along with like a female partner, with the sun in Taurus, somebody that has a Scorpio moon, they would have a great connection. He's got moon in Aquarius. So he would get along really well with a Leo sun. So those things are more important, and what houses they fall in. Hey, Dylan, go easy. Yeah, well, because you're not going easy. Gotta yell at him. So the outer planets are more generational. They're not as important as what's happening on the chart itself. All right, I hope that helps, and I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.